So thank you, ladies, for joining us on our inspirational panel. And aren't they inspirational? I would like to thank you, first of all, and then say that I know that you're all experts in your own field, and any introduction I would give would not do justice to your achievements, but I need to introduce you to the group, so I'm going to quickly go through some short bios. I've already done Tony and Rupert, so I'll go straight to Hannah. And Hannah Durling is the community manager at Univale, Romdeco, Westfield. She's responsible for implementing the Croydon Partnerships community strategy, which involves upskilling young people, working with local community organisations and budding entrepreneurs. So the community is ready for the £1.4 billion regeneration project, which will transform Croydon's two main shopping centres into retail and leisure destinations of South London. I'd also like to introduce Councillor Manju Shahul-Hameed. Manju became a councillor since 2006 after coming from India. In 2014-15, she became the Mayor of Croydon. During her time as Mayor, Manju raised £52,000 for charities. Last year, she became a cabinet member for economies and jobs. Manju then went on to starting her own mental health foundation charity in 2017 because of stigma around mental health, particularly amongst South Asian communities. Manju is currently studying a PhD in integration of health and social care at University of Greenwich, and she's soon to be known as Dr. Shahul-Hameed. And absolutely. So thank you so much, ladies. Now I'm really excited about talking to you, especially around the gender parity and gender balance. But actually, the format of today is the questions are going to come from the audience. Not me. So I'm just going to stand here and be a bit jealous that I don't get to ask you questions. But so today's first question is, and I'm going to pass the mic to you. The first question is from Jay Nagamutu, who's from Addington Village.
Hello, everyone. First question is, what do we mean by gender equality? And when we think about where we are today in the world, what progress needs to be made? And why are we still talking about it?
Start with Manju.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for that introduction and also inviting me to be here as a panelist among all these inspirational ladies. And looking around the room, like the speakers have said earlier on, most of you are familiar to me, and friends, colleagues, and community leaders. You're all an inspiration, and I have learned a lot from you when I had the conversation, sometimes individual conversation, or also sometimes coming to the community events and having the conversation with all of you. Learned a lot. Going back to the question, so for me, equality and also gender balance is all about supporting and empowering women to reach their full potential. Ima has made the introduction about me, but after I came over from India in 1996 to join my husband, and so after graduation, after completing my master's, I started working as a software engineer in a company which has 30,000 employees worldwide. It's a software company, an insurance broker as well. And so one of the things the company decided to do was to have employee forums and also the networks. So that was a trend that was happening in a number of big employers, and they decided to do that. And there was a formal application which was going around among the employees to show their expression of interest. And I put the application to become the chair of a multicultural community because they wanted to bring in women and supporters, multiculturalism, LGBT. And also the health. So I did put my application, I got that post, and later on, as a normal employee, I was a software engineer, so obviously didn't have an exposure in the leadership level. So you didn't want to, you just wanted to go there and do your 9-to-5 job, and it was flexible at the beginning, and come home and do your community duties, and that's all. But then after I becoming the chair of the multicultural community, I came to realize that when you look at the top level structure of that business with 30,000 employees worldwide, they didn't have no single female leadership person. None of them from BAME communities, all men. So that's the reason, that was one of the reasons they wanted to bring in that employee networks and make a difference. And having those 4 networks clearly made a difference. And we organized as co-chairs, we came together and we wanted to make sure that the leaderships are there on the top level, and so we organize monthly sessions for the employees in different locations. So I was based in London and also in Reigate, and also other colleagues. We come together in different parts of the world, and we make sure that the leadership listen to what we are saying about the gender equality. And so that happened. And when I look at Croydon Council, so we are in bringing about a number of initiatives. So last year in 2018 we won ENEI award. So what that is equality network award. So the reason we won was Croydon Council also set up the employee networks, and one of the initiatives they have taken is on the menopause. So older women, they never talk about what they're going through. They are under pressure, they have the mood swing. But then as a council, we wanted to make sure that we recognize the stages as women go through. Yesterday I was talking to my director and we were talking about the period. Once we, after the age of 12, we go through that changes. So some girls it is after the age of 8 or 10, and we go through that stages, and after that we never talk about it. So that was the reason, and we talk about the hormonal changes, and we do that, feel that pressure as women in this room. We know that, and so that was the reason. So Croydon Council recognized the fact that older women need to talk about menopause and the effect on their daily life, and that was the reason we won that award. And also second award we won on the same night was the apprenticeship award, and that comes under my portfolio as the cabinet member for economy and jobs. And that was because some of the leaders became the lone parents of the younger apprentices. So they wanted to make sure that if they have a young apprentice working for the council, some of the leaders or the managers, they became the lone parent of those apprentices so that they can provide that support. So, those are the 2 things I wanted to say now. I know others wanted to say more about, what's happening in their own areas as well. Pass it on to. Please. Thank you.
I thought it was an excellent question, but I think, sadly, until the end of time, there will be inequality, not just amongst women, but sometimes men too fall into that, to be scrupulously fair. My own personal, I've always been treated very fairly. I've been very fortunate, but however, when I had a role as chair of London Specialised Commissioning Board, and that was for all the specialised commissioning for the whole of London, and I was the first woman to do such a job. And with a name like Tony, the first meeting I went into to chair, we had all these consultants from various hospitals sitting one side of the table, and lay people the other side. And one of these wonderful consultants came over and said to me, "Oh, are you the new secretary?" I said, "No, I'm the chair." And so, I mean, it goes on. I was the first woman chief executive in the YMCA. And when I first started going to regional meetings of the YMCA, it was all men. And they didn't know what to say when I was in there. They didn't have proper agendas. I I sorted them out. And in a strange way, I became the secretary of that group. And I remember going to India to a conference, international conference with the YMCA, and certainly in India, all of the chief executives were male. Same with Africa. I mean, it just so happens. But there are more and more women now. I've been retired 8 years, and there's more and more women going into it. But I think it's an issue. But I think we should say to our daughters, you can reach the sky, you can make it, you can do it. I say all the time to women who come into my surgery with issues, you can be what you want to be. What do you want to be? And then we'll have a plan to get there. And you know, there's a great joy in that. And so I think that's what we have to do. Women have to support women, but there are equally men who could do far better in life. And can I just say one more thing, which is about men actually. Knocking on doors, and I'm sure my colleagues here will agree with you, there is a whole team of 50 pluses out there, mainly men, who've been in middle management. And when the companies make cuts, that's the tier that is removed. And they're at home, they're depressed, they see their families, their wives, their children go off to jobs every day, and they don't have a job. They stop shaving, they look scruffy, and you know, they're popping pills to try and make them happy that don't make them happy. There's an inequality there, insofar as, because they're 50 plus and because they've had a job up here, even if they go for the most simple job, they're overqualified. So we have to think about them as well. If we're going to be a fair and equal society, women still have a long way to go, but by God, going back to that woman, the turn of the last century, you know, that we may rock a cradle, but we can rock the world. Thank you.
I'm not sure what more I can say. For me, gender equality, I'll refer back to my own business, and growing up I always wanted to be, other than singing, I always wanted to be my dad's secretary. Now that's a really, really not a pleasant job to be, because I started doing it without realising it. I think women play a lot of the role. Women play the secretary role very well. They may not have that title, but we're constantly trying to organise things and pull people together and get stuff done. So I remember from a very young age, I would always go into the office, and my brothers and I would both be there, all three of us would be there, but I would be the one who, can you go and get this guest some tea? Can you organise lunch? Can you book this, please, Ruba, for me? Ruba, can you call Mum and tell her that, you know, I've got a meeting tonight, so we'll be a bit late till we come home. And I realised I played that role, and we had a meeting with some very, very senior executives who'd come to see my father. My dad said, Ruba, can you go and make some tea? And the executive said, oh, is this, you must be Kirit's assistant. And I said, no, actually, I'm Kirit's daughter. And then, and the executive looked at my dad and said, so do you ask your sons to make us tea and lunch? And they were very direct. My dad said, I never thought about it. And it took that moment, never again did my dad ever ask me to make tea. I always offered, because that's my personality. But if there's one piece of advice, you also stopped calling me his princess from that day in front of our executives as well, which I don't really mind, which I mind now. It's quite nice. I call my daughter a princess, but I must avoid doing that. So I think it comes from the family. Yeah, it does come from the family.
Just rolling on from the tea side of things, I'm also the Croydon Development Team PA. And I also get asked for tea quite a lot, and I always say, if you want to make me one first, I'll make you one after. In terms of gender equality, what does it mean to me? It's almost about balance, finding a balance. One of the things that Unibiodemco Westfield, I'm not promoting my company, but one thing that I did love about the company was that their values. They have objectives for our annual review, we have objectives that are all about career development. And my boss, Steve Human, who would absolutely hate me mentioning his name, but he is an aspiration because he pushes and he pushes and he pushes, but he does it for the right reasons, and he will stand up for me, and he will know when I've got something on the back of my mind and I need to talk about it, or if there's a career avenue that I want to take, he will encourage me and push me to do that. An example of that was I was originally recruited at Unibail Rodamco Westfield as a PA, and I took on additional responsibility, which was encouraged by Steve. It required me to not be there so constant for the team, but it meant that I could progress with my community work, which is what I really do enjoy. Croydon is where I was born. I've been bred here. My parents lived and born in Croydon. I'm passionate about the team, and I'm passionate about where I live. And for me, it's about changing people's perceptions, whether that be about gender equality, but also people's perceptions about Croydon as well. What I love is I love being with young people, working with young people, communicating. I love talking with people, and I think things like mentorship and working with grass organisations, that's where we need to focus our attention on, so that the young people see that there are opportunities, so that they don't see a gender equality gap. There is equal opportunities for men and women, and that when people have passion and determination, anyone can get there.
Thank you very much for that, ladies, and I think some fantastic answers there. We have another 2 questions that are coming, so just to move things along a little bit, and we want to hear from all of you again. That's why what I want to do is ask the next question to 2 and then ask the following question to the other 2. Is that okay? Because I don't want to shorten your answers, I just want to make sure that we've got everybody in there, but still have the questions. So the second question is from Uma Ramchan from Purley.
What do you think about women's empowerment, particularly amongst minority communities compared to other communities?
Shall I read that? Did you hear it? Okay, I'll read it again. So, what do you think about women's empowerment, particularly amongst minority communities compared to other communities?
Very interesting questions. Being a part of the BAME community myself, I think I will be able to share my experience, and also coming from India. I was born and brought up in India. I came over after completing my degree back home, and after having seen what happens in your own home, in your own family back home, it's completely different to the culture here. So back home in India, where I was from, women have the responsibility of looking after the home, doing the cooking, cleaning, and also making sure that the men in the family are fed and looked after. And that is the culture. And also most of the women, they used to say, looking at back at, when I was brought up, my mum never worked. She was a housewife. She used to stay home, and she used to make sure that she wake up 4 o'clock in the morning and prepare all the meal for our breakfast, the lunch, and also when we come home, she'll be there to make us tea. And when we come back from school, me and my brother come back from school, and when my dad come home from his office about 7 o'clock, she'll prepare the dinner. But then there are most of the evenings. What I noticed is my dad will join in doing the cooking with her, and it was. But then it wouldn't happen in every families. When I visit my cousin's family or uncles or auntie's family, it doesn't happen in every single house. But in my home, that was what I have seen. And coming over from India, having settled down in the UK, we talk about the equality, we talk about women's rights, and I always think that I wouldn't be in this position without the support of the man in my life or the men in my life. And I think I shared that when I became mayor. One of the reasons I'm here, I had the opportunity to come to this country, is because of my husband, who decided to bring me over, came over to get married to me. We had an arranged marriage, and I only saw him once before my marriage. And we got married after 7 days, and he came back to UK after 21 days. Then I came over after 1.5 years, and we had our life, and we've been married for, it's going to be 25 years this July. And I must say, we really had a happy life. And but then without his support, I wouldn't be here. And when I became mayor, this has been echoed in the communities, that you need that support from that person in your life to become who you are. And I'm sure ladies in this room definitely experience the same thing. And in terms of the communities, there is clearly an issue. There is clearly a stigma. One of the reasons I set up a mental health charity 2 years ago was because of the stigma in mental health issues in the communities. And even not just about the mental health, but in terms of the equalities as well, there is a stigma within the families, and people don't want to talk about it, and they wanted to keep it to themselves. And so in order to break that stigma or the bias, you need to have that conversation, which is quite important. And also it has to, when I look at the schools, so the schools and the teachers can do a lot of work in terms of breaking that stigma. So they can invite the female leaders from the community to the schools and having a session on the gender equality. And they have different sessions and workshops within the schools on various things, competitions and all that. So why can't they have the same kind of exposure or importance on the gender equalities? How many schools make that happen? So that is something, as a community, we have to promote and make sure that that happens in the school. And as parents, most of us are as parents, and I have to voice myself. And how many times over the dinner table we talk about gender equality and looking after and giving that equal opportunity for your, the female student from your own class, and also the young girls who you are interacting with. So it has to come from home, and also it has to come from communities. And organizations such as ARCC is doing a great job in terms of promoting that. And also I have seen yoga earlier on. I think she's still in the room, and she is also organizing a number of events in the communities for, she belongs to the community, and I have attended one of her events. That's how I know she is promoting those kind of events in the community for women to come together and talk about, promoting those kind of the equality, and also how the importance of treating everyone equal. And going back to Croydon Council, since I am in this role, one of the things that we have decided to bring about is a good employer charter. So it follows four principles. So paying the London living wage, employ local, buy local, and promote equality and diversity. And I wanted to talk about the fourth principle here. So that's all about making sure that the equality side of things are followed by the employers of the communities in Croydon. So we have 14,000 businesses, nearly 15,000 businesses in Croydon. And when we brought that good employer charter in Croydon 2 years ago, only 20 of them decided to sign up quite quickly. And now, 2 years on, we have 75 good employers in the good employer charter. Out of that, nearly 15,000 businesses. So how do we make sure that the employers in Croydon promote equality and make sure that they look after their employees and give them their equal rights to promote the carers in the communities and also the parents, and making sure that they are working in an equal setting, and make sure that they'll get that support.
I have to follow that. It's amazing. So I think today's young people are very different than I might have been 40 or 50 years ago. I think that young women today are actually doing it for themselves, regardless of where or what country their parents may have come from or have traditions. I think that's very important. I was brought up in the Republic of Ireland. My father was a Protestant clergyman. I had one brother. My brother was sent to university to do the classics and theology. I was supposed to stay at home. Finishing school at 18, I was supposed to stay at home and help my father run his parishes, giving my mother some time off. I didn't want that. I wanted a life of my own. So I emigrated to England, where I trained my first role. I trained as a nurse at Guy's. But I would not expect young women in Ireland today, or young women whose parents may have arrived from another country, to say, actually, I don't want to stay at home, I don't want to cook, I don't want to care for granny, or I don't want to do this. I actually want a life of my own. So I honestly believe that today's young people who are going to be tomorrow's leaders, we are in safe hands because women are doing it for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. And the final question we have is from Sandy Anirode, who's from Thornton Heath.
Hello, panel. What should be the role of men in the women's empowerment movement, and what should women do to encourage men to get involved? Thank you.
So this question will be answered by Hannah and Rupa. I'll start on this end if you don't mind, because I'm just here.
For me, when I hear that question, I think it's quite simple. Men should support women, and women should communicate how they feel and be honest about how they feel. Rupa?
Very good. Maybe we should ask the men in the audience. There's not many of you, and you've all been very quiet. So if anyone else in the audience, Deputy Mayor, if you'd like to answer that question, the mic is yours.
It's called delegation.
Yeah. Okay. As a father, I have 2 daughters and a son. Now, being in England, being a community, I felt that I should be treating them equally. So when my first daughter, eldest, when she was in her 20s, she wanted to work and live outside the home, So if my son asked the same question, I would have allowed him to work and live outside home. So I did the same thing. She said, look, Dad, I need to, because where I work, it will be better if I live outside the home, near my work. And I said, that's fine, because if I keep her in control, she will not exercise her ability to the fullest. So, as a dad, I gave all my children, sons and daughters, the equal right to choose their living, whatever work they want to do, whatever education they want to do. I wanted them to be the doctors, as usually Asian dads say. But they have chosen banking. And I say, it's your choice. As a parent, you'll decide how your life is going to be going ahead. Now, of course, as Rupa or I think you say, that we need to communicate. The communication within the family is very important. Okay, men needs to understand that now is nearly 21st centuries, so it has to be a fair, balanced gender in work and at home. Now, my wife will give you the evidence how I help her in the kitchen. Now, I would say, let me make the cup of tea for you. So other men, I'm sure they do too. But there are a number of men there still thinking the old-fashioned way, saying they expect their cup of tea to appear on the table. Now, thing has changed. If we are doing all this for all this seminar, all this work for a number of years, and if we are not practicing, then what is the point of all that? So I'm sure the new generation are looking at some of their parents, and if their parents are in the kitchen, they are likely to be in the kitchen. How many times I ask my son, look, it's your turn to make the Sunday dinner. There was a rotation, yeah, one Sunday for the young, yeah. So that's how it works. So we need to practice what we are hearing and what we are learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, ladies. Can I have a massive, massive round of applause for these ladies who've taken time out? Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed yourself as much as we did. And I thought that was really a nice way of getting people to ask questions. And I've just noticed my friend Sue. Did you just walk in? Or have you been here? Hi. Hi, she's from CNCA, ladies and gentlemen, another organisation that works with elderly people and does lots of good work. I just wanted to give her a shout out. And I just noticed someone else as well that I wanted to say hello to, my hairdresser. She's in there. Hi, Patti. So ladies, thank you so much. And this is not the end. We will be bringing you back more, and I'm sure you guys want to hear from them again sometime, right? So my invitation to you to come back to us and keep joining in. Thank you so much.